जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna and welcome back. Thank you for joining. Today we are discussing verse number 51 of chapter number 2 from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And in the previous verse number 50, Krishna gives another definition of yoga. So earlier Krishna defined yoga as samatvam yoga uchyate. So equanimity is yoga. And in verse number 50, he gives another definition as yogaha karmasu kaushalam. So Krishna is telling Arjuna that a man who is engaged in Buddhi yoga, he can get rid of all the good and bad reactions even in this life. So therefore Krishna is telling Arjuna to strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. Yogaha karmasu kaushalam. So there are 5 benefits of performing Buddhi yoga or Nishkama Karma Yoga, or Krishna consciousness or devotional service. Either way, we understand this term Buddhi Yoga. So there are 5 benefits, and this verse number 50 gives the first benefit. The first benefit is one can get rid of all the good and bad reactions of their activity, even in this life. So that is the first definition of the second definition of yoga. Yogaha karmasu kaushalam. Now in today's verse number 51, Krishna is saying, let's read the verse. This is the second benefit of performing Buddhi yoga. So the Sanskrit for this verse 51 is Karmajam buddhi yukta hi phalam taktva manishina Janma bandha vinirmuktaha padam gacchanti anamayam. So here in this verse, Krishna is first time going to describe a destination that is higher than Swarga. And the word which Krishna has used is anamayam. So first let's read the translation. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the result of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state of beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. So, here the first line, 51a, Krishna is saying, Karmajam buddhi yuktahi. And in line B is saying, Phalang taktva manishina. So line A means when one works dovetailing one's karma and works with buddhi. So somebody is doing karma, but he is dovetailing that karma in such a way that it becomes a Buddhi yoga. So when one does that and does it, how does he do it? That is by the next line. Phalam taktva manishina. So one gives attachment to the fruits. Phala is a fruit. So one gives up attachment to the fruits, and such a person is manishina. Manishina means one who has conquered mind. Manaha plus isha. So that is manisha or manishinaha. So what is the meaning of conquering the mind? So mind is always looking for temporary or superficial enjoyment. And mind doesn't see the deeper reality of or deeper facts. Or it doesn't look for far distance, what is going to be beneficial for me in long term. So when mind doesn't see deeper reality, then actually it cannot attain the spiritual goals. So somebody who has conquered the mind, he understands that what is the spiritual goal of my life. So that kind of person who can think deeper, who understands the spirituality and who can think deeper, that person is called as Manishina. Then the next line, which is 51c, Janma Bandha Vinirmukta. So that person or Manishana who acts like this, who acts in or dovetails his work in Buddhi Yoga, what is the result of that? Janma Bandha Vinirmukta. So becomes free from the cycle of birth and death. Vinirmukta means getting free or getting liberated. Vinirmukta is liberated from Janma and Bandha. Means Janma, Karma, that Bandhan is going on eternally, the cycle of birth and death. So one can break the cycle of birth and death. And once somebody breaks the cycle of birth and death, then what happens? Then where does that person go? So that person goes to Padam Gachanti Anamayam. So he goes to the place that is called as Anamayam. Anamayam is a place which doesn't, or which is free from misery. So since Krishna has not explicitly talked about himself yet, so he is not including or indicating about the spiritual world. Simply mentions that it is a place which is free from all miseries. Now in our introduction sessions, we have discussed about this diagram. So this diagram is very important to understand because this is like a map. So it tells us where we are and where we go after liberation. So this diagram shows, the lower part of the diagram is showing the picture is showing there's one universe, and there are actually several universes which is shown over here. All these egg kind of things, there are all universes, but we can just go deeper into one universe and understand. And beyond this area, this green area, so this is Brahma Jyoti, and beyond that is the spiritual planets or Vaikunta planets. So Vaikunta means Vigata Kunta, means there is no anxiety or miseries, or a place which is free from all miseries. So the Krishna is using the term Anamayam. So this is what Krishna is talking about. So after this breaking the cycle of birth and death, one goes to the spiritual planets or Vaikunta Loka. So these are all Vaikunta Lokas. And if you go deeper into the universe, then in one universe, then this is the earthly planet. So we are currently in the earthly realm. And above us is Bhuvara Loka, then above that is Swarga Loka, where we call this Swarga Loka as heavenly planets, where all the demigods, they reside over there. And above that is Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka and Satyaloka. Satyaloka is a place where Lord Brahma is residing. So this is the structure of the creation which is given in our scriptures. So this is about one universe. Now breaking the cycle of birth and death means, normally if we are within the cycle of birth and death, so generally we'll be in this earthly region. But if we do extremely good pious activities, or if we follow the Karma Kanda process, Vedic rituals, which we have been discussing last several verses, so then gradually you go up and you get to enjoy in the Swarga Loka, higher kind of enjoyment. And then once those credits are done, then the person comes, or the soul comes back to this earthly realm. And for punishment, the soul goes to the lower region. And below Patala is the Naraka Loka. So we have discussed this diagram many times, but it is good to keep this diagram in mind. And breaking the cycle of birth and death means you eject from this area, from this universe, and then you have a choice. You can either go to Brahma Jyoti. So Brahma Jyoti is a bodily effulgence of the Lord. And in this effulgence you can just hang around doing nothing. But because the soul is active, the soul needs to do something. And if the soul doesn't know about the Vaikunta planet, if the soul knows about Vaikunta planet, then it can go to the Vaikunta planet, which are all the planets over here. So there are innumerable planets in the Vaikunta Loka. But if the soul doesn't know about this, about the Vaikuntha Loka, then the soul may again come into this earthly realm to do some kind of activity, because without activity the soul cannot live. Soul is active in nature. Krishna twice in Bhagavad Gita brings up this point, one in chapter number 13 and in chapter number 3, and then chapter number 18. In those two chapters, Krishna repeatedly gives this message that soul is active, it needs to act, so it must act. So this engagement can be in the material level, or engagement can be in the spiritual level. So if the soul is hanging around in Brahma Jyoti, it has no activity, then it again, if it doesn't know about the Vaikuntha, then it again falls down to this material world to perform some activity or do some activity. So this is diagram is gives us some idea what is Krishna talking about here as Anamayam. Anamayam is the place which is free from misery, which is this Vaikuntha Loka. So these are all Vaikuntha Loka planets. So this is actually the liberation. Liberation means breaking the cycle of birth and death. So when we practice our spiritual life in the way by staying detached from the fruits or the result of the activities, and by fixing the mind on spiritual reality, then one will attain the destination which is free from all the miseries. Because when we act and we are attached to the fruits, then whatever good or bad reactions we have to either suffer or enjoy. So then in order to suffer or enjoy, we have to stay in this material world. That's why Krishna is saying that do not be attached to the fruits of the activity. So then, let's see what Srila Prabhupada has to explain the things in the purport. So here we see in this particular picture that, Krishna is saying, thus by engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the result of work in the material world. So here, these devotees, after the death, if they have no karmic balance, then what happens? The result is they go back to the spiritual world. So here we see the soul is going back to the spiritual world, to the Vaikuntha planet, or Anamayam, which is a place where there is no misery. So Prabhupada talks about the destination of liberated beings, which we have discussed to a little extent. So the liberated living entities belong to that place where there is no material miseries, which is Anamayam. So that is the place where the liberated beings, they go there. And in Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 58th verse, it says that Sammasrita ye pada pallava plavam mahat padam punyo yasho murare bhavam buddhir vatsa padam param padam yat padam natesham. So what is the meaning of this? So the first line indicates, for one who has taken or who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of Lord. So in ocean, if there is somebody drowning in the ocean, and if there's a boat comes and then somebody accept or take the shelter of that boat. So here taking shelter of the boat is actually compared to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is famous as Mukunda, or giver of mukti. So somebody who has taken the accepted the boat of the lotus feet of Lord, basically he has taken the shelter of the Lord, then for that person, the Lord, who is actually giver of mukti and who is also famous as Mukunda, by his blessings or by his mercy, what happens? This material world is actually like an ocean, so it's considered like an ocean. So to cross this material world, it's very, very difficult. So here it is said that Bhavam buddhir vatsapadam parampadam. So the ocean of the material world, it's like an ocean. Normally it is like ocean for somebody who has not taken shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. But one who takes the shelter of lotus feet of Krishna, that ocean becomes like a hoof print of a calf. Which a hoof print of a calf is very small. So if you want to cross the ocean, it is very difficult. But if you have to cross the hoof print of a calf, which is so small, so you can easily cross over. So this is the importance of taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And when we take shelter of that Parampadam, that Parampadam, or the place where there is no material miseries, or we take the shelter of Mahatpadam, if we take a shelter of Mahatpadam, then it's very easy to get Parampadam. And then it is said that this particular world is Padam Padam Yat Vipadam Na Tesham. So this particular universe is such that there is misery, or there is danger actually, at every steps in this life, in this material world. And that's what Prabhupada is mentioning in the next point, that is, material world is danger at every step. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. So danger can hit any one of us at any time. We don't know what time it is going to hit. So this is a place which is designed like that. Krishna later in Bhagavad Gita is saying that this place, material world, is Dukkhalayam. So Dukkhalayam means is a place of misery. And Ashashvatam, Ashashvatam is temporary. So people who are not knowing about what's going on in this world, they think everything is going good. But danger can hit anybody at any time. So out of ignorance only, less intelligent person try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that the resultant action will make them happy. So they try to dodge all the kind of problems that are cropping up one after other. We fix one problem, other problem comes up. So we try to, enjoy amongst or amid all kind of problems which are given to us in this material world, thinking that, one day I will become happy. But by design, this material world is Dukkhalaya. Nobody can in this world can be happy. Even if people are happy, it will be very short-lived. It will be for very short time. So Prabhupada further says it's a place of misery. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe, even if we go to the heavenly planets, there are miseries. But, we don't know about those things. They are always in anxiety. The demigods are generally always in anxiety. So they don't know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely birth and death, old age and disease, are present everywhere within this material world. So from topmost planet, from Brahmaloka to, we just saw in the picture, Brahma's planet, to the lowest planet, everywhere there are these miseries of life, namely birth, death, old age and disease. How one in knowledge acts. So somebody who has studied scriptures, who have studied Bhagavad Gita, how do they act? But one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in transcendental loving service of the Lord. So when one understands his position, who he is, what is his real position, he is a soul, he is a part and parcel of Krishna, then what that person does, he engages himself in the transcendental service of the Lord. Result of acting in knowledge. So when you act like this, you engage in service, what is the result? Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets, where there is neither material miserable life nor the influence of time and death. So these are all missing over there. These are good things. It is good that they are missing. So that's why it is an eternal place. You go there and you live there eternally in the Vaikuntha Loka with the Supreme Lord. What is the eligibility to enter Vaikuntha Loka? To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. So to know our position, when we read Bhagavad Gita, we understand we are not this body, we are soul. So that is part 1 of the knowledge. Part 2 of the knowledge is about the Lord, who is the Supreme Lord, what is his position, and then the next thing to know is we have a relationship with him, and that relationship is currently broken, and we have to re-establish that relationship. So all these things we understand. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are the same level is to be understood to be in the darkness and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. So if somebody thinks that I am God, then it won't work, because we are not God, and eventually we will learn by hard way. He becomes a Lord himself and thus paves the way for the repetition of birth and death. So somebody thinks that I am same as God, then that person will say, if God is enjoying, I also want to enjoy. So enjoy means, then the part of that enjoyment is the result of that action. So that result will eternally keep us in the cycle of birth and death. But one who understands that his position is to serve, transfer himself to the service of the Lord, and at once become eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. So the service is the eligibility. Loving devotional service is the eligibility to enter into the Vaikuntha Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called a Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. So service to the Lord can be given different names, either Karma Yoga, Nishkama Karma Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, Prabhupada is saying is Bhakti. Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord. So whatever has been discussed in the purport is given here, and we were talking about these 5 benefits acting in Buddhi Yoga. In verse number 50, the first benefit was given, freedom from good and bad reactions. And in today's verse, 51st, it is freedoms from the cycle of birth and death, and the person will attain liberation and then go to a place which doesn't have any misery, that is Anamayam. So in the next verse, Krishna will explain that this place of Anamaya is beyond the Vedas. It is not within the purview of the Veda. It is a reality which is much better than the realities which are presented in the Vedas. So in the Vedas, all kind of sense enjoyment in the heavenly planets are given in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. And Anamaya is actually beyond that, and we saw from that picture where Anamaya is in the Vaikuntha Loka, whereas the heavenly planets are within this universe, and it is subjected to birth, death, old age and disease. And then Krishna is saying that it is much better than the realities that is talked about in the Vedas, and hence one has to go beyond the Vedas. That is which explained in the next verse. So with this we'll stop here and we'll continue our discussion in the next session. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Gaur Premanande Haribol.